geopolitical situation. Is there any research going on, for example, social attitudes? How Ukrainian society and Polish society related to each other? What the reception of policies were by the population, Ukrainian population of the Polish state? Because what I'm struck with is that at this point we lost most of the people in the interwar period who would have been living witnesses of it, but we still have some left of this period. But it strikes me if this is the continued tendency of Polish historiography, it's going to be a very arid sort of future for it unless it expands its topics.
I agree with your assessment. This is also my assessment. It's very traditional and very politically motivated historiography still in this particular respect. So, because we talk about Polish-Ukrainian relations, we somehow put aside everything that is not dominated by two national projects, national conflicting projects, which are evidently 100% typical political old-fashioned history. It is not predominantly social or psychological history, and it is treated as traditional political history with elements of history of ideas. I haven't mentioned a very good Polish book that analyzes five Ukrainian national thinkers, starting from Łubinski, Boczkowski, and Skrytnik and Shapoval. This is just an example of the history of ideas, but what dominates really is typical traditional political history. There were several conferences which had its materials printed, in which there were some elements of analysis of stereotypes, Polish-Ukrainian stereotypes, also from interwar period. But the subjects you mentioned that are so important are still waiting for research. So I can agree.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Would it be possible for someone to summarize in a line or two the presentation of Professor? Just very briefly.
Wow. It's very difficult to summarize very briefly, but I shall attempt to do so. It's a question of the Ukrainian-Polish relations during the revolution. And he kind of divided the periods between when the revolution first started and Poles were pursuing their own interests, and then of course the Ukrainians in creating the Centralna Rada, creating their own situation. What might have been interesting to add to that when the Ukrainians were proclaiming the Fourth Universal, the declaration of the minorities, it was the Polish representatives who were in the Ukrainian parliament, as it were, who voted in favor of it. That is my addition. But basically what he discussed is the nuances, and then there are some slight geographical or border claims, let's say, in the western Ukraine, the Poles. There was always a problem in there. And then he discussed the problem when the communists come to power, and what you have in Ukraine is pressure from the east and the northeast. Both you have communists and the Denikin from the south, and of course the Poles pressure the Ukrainians who proclaimed their independence in Galicia in November 1st, 1918. So you have kind of three powers that are fighting against the Ukrainians. The Western Ukrainians, the Eastern Ukrainians, and then of course the Ukrainians in the West are pressured by the Poles out of Western Ukraine, out of Galicia. Then the situation develops, and the situation develops unfavorably for the Ukrainians in the East, fighting against the communists, the Ukrainians ultimately opt for an alliance with Józef Pilsudski, with the Polish government. And what you do have, and that's something that could have been pursued in great detail, it's very fascinating. It's point about the not Wieslow, you know, the miracle on Vistula, and what the role of the Ukrainians, but that's a different matter. That was not discussed. And that's basically what it ends, that ultimately, and the point was made about whether Pilsudski was really this federalism of Pilsudski that was added. Basically, Pilsudski was a Polish patriot who wanted to use all the resources, including Ukrainian resources, in order to gain independence for the Polish state. And when it was in favor of Poland to sign the Treaty of Riga, he did, and then said to the Ukrainians, "Ja was bardzo przepraszam, forgive us, and this is not what was in our interest," and then he pursued what was not discussed. Well, and I will not pursue this. You only asked me to present a very short summary, and I, as the chairman, should not, I have a few things to say, but that is basically what was said. All right? Any questions? In that case, thank you to the lecturers.